Hello and welcome to this week's Angel Oracle card reading for week commencing the 9th of July 2018. Thank you so much for joining me here this week. This week we are using the Energy Oracle cards, and we're going to pull 3 cards to symbolize the beginning of the week, the middle and the end, and what energies are affecting the majority of us, if not all of us, on some level. So we'll apply these cards to our own lives and see how we can navigate through any celebrations or even perhaps obstacles. So we'll check out the card that comes up for the beginning of the week, and we have number 18, which is anxiety. And it's a bit of a sad card, really, because we've got this lady and she's got one hand in her head, she's thinking, another one on her face like this, and she's crying. And this anxiety, I think a lot of us, particularly those of us who are sensitive, have experienced anxiety at some point in our existence. And sometimes this can be a long-standing thing, or this can be something that just kind of creeps up over us, sometimes when we least expect it. But it's important with this idea of anxiety that we know it may happen. We may feel breathless. We may feel worried. And I've experienced this myself, and it's something that quite recently, actually, I'm going to be completely honest, I've been going through myself. It's when this anxiety creeps up over things we can't change, or situations we can't change, people we can't help, no matter what it is that brings up that anxiety. There are obviously, if this isn't in replace of medical advice, but some of the tips that I'm learning is to just breathe. So many of us are shallow breathers. We don't use the whole of our diaphragm. We should be really inhaling and holding it and exhaling to the, what's comfortable for each of us, but just allowing ourselves to breathe, to oxygenate our bodies, because often when we're not getting enough oxygen in our bodies, it can cause anxiety. The second thing, which is, I'm actually going to show this now, is keep hydrated. This is something that I have been very guilty of for the past year. I've most of my life been very good at drinking water, and the past year I really haven't, and I've noticed a difference from that. So one of my mid-year resolutions is to keep hydrated, and actually I'm going to have a drink right now. So I encourage you to do the same. So it's just, realizing that we are human, that we may get anxious. Card number 18, 1 and 8 adds up to the number 9, and 9 is the number of completion. Well, if we think of 10 as the number of completion, 9 is the card that comes just before the end of a cycle. So it can often be one of the hardest numbers, really, to deal with, because if we think about the 9 of Swords, for example, in tarot, it could be restless nights, it could be nightmarish situations. Again, this is to do with anxiety. So just to know that if you are suffering from it, you're not alone. You can reach out for help and support professionally, but those breathing exercises and keeping hydrated is going to be so important. And that's the messages that I'm getting from the beginning of this week. As we move into the middle of the week, we have Door to Spirit. This is an absolutely beautiful card. We've got this golden door, and this dove is just flying through it, and all this new fresh energy is coming in. We may find that our psychic abilities in the middle of this week in particular are heightened, even perhaps mediumship abilities. We may not feel comfortable with that, we may not want that, some of us may want that. It depends on what our beliefs are. There's no right or wrong, but this door to spirit means that we are extra sensitive to spiritual energy and spiritual vibes, and so that could be something that gives us anxiety too, but it can also be something that's very liberating and actually helps us to develop our gift and our connection with the divine further. 3 and 2 is 5. Again, we said this last week, 5 is the number of change, of things altering. So we are going through this anxious time. This door to spirit is telling us that there is a change. And at the end of the week, we have card 26, and it is hostilities. We've got this He-Man character with this sword. This week sounds like it's going to be quite tricky. I'm not going to lie to you. Last week there was some good news at the end of the week, but this week, not meaning to fearmonger, but it sounds like it's going to be somewhat harder. With this anxiety, and then at the end of the week, hostilities, whether we feel like we're being defensive to other people, if we feel like we're being criticized, or people are getting at us in some way, we might come across as hostile. At the same time, other people might come across as hostile to us. But it's important that we try and navigate through that in a mature way. A lot of this is a tricky thing, because often when you're a spiritual person, people or outside people may think that means that you have to be, or one has to be, passive, turn the other cheek, be very gentle, be very nice and smiley. But within that knowledge of what a spiritual being we are, can come some feistiness and even some aggression. And I say this because I have that feistiness and fire within myself, but I also have a calmness within my own personality. So I know that there'll be other people with that as well. We can sometimes have that feisty side and sometimes that calm side. But it's important that if there are these hostilities coming, that we try and stay compassionate, coming from a place of love. We can be a spiritual activist. We don't have to put up with rubbish. We don't have to perpetuate anger. We don't have to perpetuate harm. And that's something we need to remember. So just to recap, there is some anxiety that we may be suffering from in some ways. We have this daughter spirit, so we're kind of like very spiritually open and able to receive information this week, but there may be some hostilities, and the divine is asking us to stay calm and not allow ourselves to be triggered by other people or by outside situations. So unfortunately, a bit of a tricky week. There's no other way really to explain this reading. It might be quite difficult for some of us, but it's 7 days, and a lot of lessons are going to be learned from it. Plus, the middle of the week is actually fantastic because we have that connection to the divine. It's just the two book ends of the week are quite difficult. But I really believe we're all going to get through this fine, if not maybe a little tired. But again, that's why it's important for us to breathe, hydrate ourselves, rest, recuperate, breathe some more. So I hope that you've enjoyed the reading this week. I'm sorry I'm not telling us all that financial things of money's flying into our lives and happiness and joy and things like that. That can happen in some of the weeks, but some of the weeks are a bit more tricky. But that is life, and that is real, and that's why we have signed up to this wonderful planet, in my opinion, to experience all of its facets and all of its different sides. So if you'd like to comment on this video about anything that's going on in your life, and we can try and piece together what energies are affecting us, then please do feel free. And I'd be really, really excited and happy if you felt inclined to like, share, or subscribe to this channel. Thank you again so much for joining me here. It does mean a lot to me. I can't wait to speak to you next week to see what energies are going to be affecting us then. But in the meantime, take care and many blessings. Lots of love, Alyssa.